Welcome and thanks for joining me. This is Heather Lloyd Martin of SuccessWorks. Today we're going to talk about how to write for the web. So if you're a freelance copywriter and you've been working in the print world all this time, this is really good for you to know because there's a way that you need to structure your copy to make it more readable online. And if you're a small business owner or you're in do-it-yourself mode, this is good for you to know too because the same thing applies. You'll learn how to write your web pages in a way that make it easier for folks to read and easier for folks to take action and buy from you or give you a call. So the reason why this is so important to know is writing for the web is different. And one of the reasons is that we know that people are scanning first, then reading. So it's a different experience than if you are reading offline. And according to Jakob Nielsen, who is a usability expert, 79% of people scan a new website, picking up individual words and sentences. So they're not reading word for word right away. They're quickly scanning the page, and if they came from a search, they are looking for the search terms that they used or a variation of those search terms to make sure that they're in the right place. And if you think of your own behavior, so if you have ever looked at a site on mobile, say you're standing in line at the supermarket and you're checking out a blog post, you know that it's a completely different experience. So you have to pinch and scroll. And if you're faced with a page that has super long paragraphs, not a lot of white space, it's really hard for you to read on a mobile. So learning how to write for the online environment is crucial because people are going to be accessing your website from a variety of different devices. So the first tip I would suggest is to write short, tight paragraphs. What you can get away with in the print world, because it's easier to read in the print world, doesn't quite work in the online world. So this is an example of a paragraph that is from print. And if you look at it in print, it's fine to read and there's no problems. But online, it's really chunky. It's hard to really figure out what it's about because it looks like a whole bunch of information in a very small space. This example is much easier to read. Same words. What we did is we just pulled out some of the sentences to make them stand alone. It allowed us to have more white space. It allows us to have more punch with the sentences. And if you were reading this on a mobile, it would be much easier to read than the previous example. So a second tip is to also use bullet points. And if you're writing things that have lists, it is tempting sometimes to just have commas and include the list, and you might have a longer paragraph that, again, in the print world would still work. I mean, even you're still supposed to use bullet points in the print world, but certainly you can get away with a little bit more. Online, not so much. So here's an example of the difference by using bullet points. And again, you can see that you have more white space. It's easier to read. And this is the exact same words that we saw before, but it's structured in a way that's much more accessible for folks. And the third tip I would have is that subheadlines are great for SEO, and they're also great for readers too, because going back to what we learned that people are scanning and not necessarily reading, what they're probably scanning, and we know this from old school direct mail, is they're scanning those headlines and those subheadlines. So things like change your body with private Pilates lessons. Private lessons are for you if you will tailor a Pilates workout, things like that. And they're quickly looking at those to make sure that the page meets their needs, that they want to keep reading. So some tips for those subheadlines is to, one, include them because it's a great way to break up the page, but also to make them compelling. We know that people are quick checking these subheadlines, so the more compelling you can make them, the more benefit oriented you can make them, the better. And also if you can include key phrases in those subheadlines as well, because those are emphasized texts, usually an H2 tag, so it's not like it's going to give you a huge relevancy jump in the search engines, but it can certainly help reinforce your main key phrases, and that's exactly what we want to do. So thank you very much. If you would like more information on SEO copywriting and writing for the web, you can visit my site at seocopywriting.com. You can also sign up for my newsletter to get the latest and greatest copywriting information. And if you have a question for me, I would love to hear from you. You can reach me at heather@seocopywriting.com or on Twitter at @heatherlloyd. Thanks so much, everyone, and have a great day.